Hi, and welcome to the Tattooed Teacher podcast, where we get to know the person behind the professional, going below the surface of what we see. Join with me as I talk with some incredible individuals from around Australia and the globe. My guest on this episode is my friend Ryan Gilbank. He's a businessman, family man, father, and he currently runs 3 businesses, one of which has a turnover in excess of 15 million per annum. He oversees over 80 staff and speaks in both corporate and not-for-profit areas on succeeding in the areas of family, health, and business. I hope you enjoyed this great conversation I had with Ryan. Hey, well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good after whatever time of day it is that you happen to be listening to the Tattooed Teacher podcast today. On this episode, I have Ryan Gilbank. Now, Ryan really has nothing to do with schools, but what he has to do is with some amazing things that schools are looking at now, and that's the entrepreneurial space. So, just a little bio about Ryan. So he is a gifted communicator, great encourager of people. He and his wife of 26 years have raised, Jennifer, have raised 2 young men, Michael and Christian. You may have seen one of them if you follow the Mates on Instagram and YouTube. That's one of Ryan's sons. Worth checking out. Now, Ryan has a firm grounding in the church and business world. He brings practical applications of God to God's will to equip and resource the church through his people, and speaks with authority that equips everyday people into what God has for them. Ryan currently runs 3 businesses, one of them having a turnover in excess of 15 million per annum. He oversees more than 80 staff and is currently sought after to address groups in both the corporate and not-for-profit areas on succeeding in all areas of life, family, health, and business. His message is sure to help you be a better father, mother, son, daughter, leader, follower, brother, sister, friend, whatever it may be. Ryan has some amazing advice. We've only recently met, but we've had some amazing conversations. So, Ryan, that is one great bio. Thank you
That's a
for
great
sending
bio,
it.
Phil.
Thank you for helping me out with it. I was doing the internet search and trying to piece it all together, but I thought I'm just going to go straight to the horse's mouth.
Yes, it's much nicer when you get to write your own bio. I think it's always more flattering.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where I know with some of my other guests, like I've read out their bio, and they're like, oh, geez, and they're almost they're not embarrassed, but they're almost taken back by what they've actually been able to accomplish
Yes.
so far in their professional career and personal life as well.
Yeah.
So you've got two adult sons.
2 adult sons. Yes.
You married your high school sweetheart.
Yeah. It's one of those sad stories
Hey,
or exciting stories, whichever way you look at it. Whoever's
mate,
listening.
I'm gonna go exciting because I met my
Yeah.
wife at a swimming carnival.
Beautiful.
She was in year 7, I was in year 8.
Yes.
And we tick off 30 years of marriage this October.
That's phenomenal, Phil. That is nuts.
Look, I'm all for high school sweethearts. I think you find the right person and you're willing to do what's required in marriage and in life, ups and downs. It does work out in the end. You're a businessman, an entrepreneur, a man of faith. So you're doing all these amazing things. And by the sounds of it, you're quite busy. But what is your why behind all of what you do?
Yes, that's a great question, Phil. I think one of the things how you were saying when people struggle with their own bios and that sort of stuff, I actually struggle with the idea of being labeled as an entrepreneur because I sort of I feel like we just accidentally fell into owning businesses and doing stuff, and more out of what we were talking about offline before, just having that obedient and willing heart to just do whatever God places on us. And as doors opened, We would pray about it and go, well, yeah, yes, no, yeah, try that. Don't get a go on that, pull back on that. And the more we've been able to just be, I suppose, obedient and just flowing into that, God has just opened door after door. Because I never actually intended to be a business owner. I used to dream when I was younger about being a millionaire. And then one of my best mates who I was working for many years became a millionaire. And he had the big property and the big this and all that sort of stuff. And I just saw the stress that it caused him. And so for a long time I was like, whoa, heck no. I would rather not have that sort of stuff. I'd rather be happy with my wife and kids and be able to be available. So that sort of burnt me for a long time. But I think that also gave me a better balance on what's important, because he's still one of my best mates and he finished well, let's put it that way. But he went through a very heavy journey and learnt probably the hard way, we would say, that all the money, all the stuff, all that you can make that anytime. That can be done at any stage, but you can't replace your family time. You can't replace a wife. You can't replace the time with your kids. And he learned that the hard way. By the grace of God, he's still married and they've got, they're traveling on well. But that was a journey that really could have robbed him of everything, because he went hard after that one angle rather than finding that balance. So I've had those sort of things around me that have helped me in that regard in getting into the business side. And then I suppose being raised in the church. My dad was a pastor within C3 for 40 plus years. My middle brother took over their church 3 years ago now. When I left school, that was my whole thing. I'm sorry for teachers. School was a great social platform for me. I had no intent of doing any sort of university, so I couldn't understand why I needed to stay at school. But I loved hanging out with my mates, and I still remember the last week of school going, this is the end. This is the last time you can sort of just go to a place where in the morning you're hanging out with your mates, lunchtime you're playing with your mates, afternoon you just chill. Now the real work starts. But I'd never gone until I was thinking, I'm just going to be full-time ministry. I'm going to go into and I'll be pastoring or youth or something. And yeah, just over time, God opened different doors and different things happened, and did some stint, as a full-time youth pastor, and did, basically 12 years in that realm, but as a full-time for probably 18 months. And the church I was at, lost a heap of coin and had to halve our wage. And I just had a bub, and wifey and I were like, well, responsibility comes in at some stage to look after them. So I started going down that track of looking for an external job, and got a job that led one thing to another to working for the group that I ended up buying. So that's a very compressed 20-year story.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like, I mean, our high school journey sounds pretty similar. For me, It was my high school was just a social experiment. It was about hanging out with the lads. I was going to get my trade, which I got, and I was going to be just the blue collar for the rest of my life. And but then there were other plans, and I ended up going back to uni, and a number of years later. But that 4 years of a trade definitely set me up. So whenever a student asks me about, should I do an apprenticeship, I'm like, go for it. Do it over university if it's the right thing for you. If uni's what you want to do, go for it. And it sounds like looking at your mate who, as that song goes, mo money, mo problems, or whatever it is. And you see that as in life. You see all these, you see it on the TV, you see it in the newspapers, online. It's like these guys and girls, and they have what appears to be everything. They have the fancy car, they have the glamour, they have this, they have that. Whatever they want is at their fingertips.
Yes.
And then now, more recently, that entrepreneur is attached to that as well, driving the fancy car, having the gold watch.
I think some of them are wannabe entrepreneurs or something like that, because they don't actually have it. They're in debt like anything else. And I hate the label when they haven't got anything to show for it. I know there's a process, and whatever, you can be an entrepreneur and have nothing at the time. But I sort of go, it's an interesting label. It makes it sound glamorous.
Absolutely. And you see the kids, they see it on on the social media and everything, and they go, they want that, they want the thing, they want the shiny.
Yep.
But for me, what I see is that unfortunately a lot of them don't want to do the work.
Yeah, they see the picture, and they love that, and not all young people are the same, but it's like they've been sold on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all the whatever the socials are these days, that
Yep.
you've got to love what you do every moment, and it's going to be passion, and you'll never work a day in your life if you love what you do. And there's aspects of that, but really 90% of it is just grinding, is doing stuff that putting your big boy or big girl pants on and having to do the stuff that you don't enjoy, which I don't know anyone that doesn't struggle with that, whether they're just starting off in business or working for someone, or whether they're an established billionaire and they still have to make decisions to go, right, I'm going to do the things I don't want. There's a great book, I think I can't remember who wrote it, but Eat the Frog. And it's that game of, if the worst thing you had to do every day was eat a big live green frog, how much better would your day be if you just ate that first thing in the morning, instead of seeing it there all day, looking at you, taunting you, knowing you've got to eat it at some stage? And I think that's the problem. It's like all these young people, they not all these, a lot of people have this misconception that if I have the dream job, I'll never have a day where I have to do stuff I don't like. It'll all be just bliss and rainbows and unicorns, and it's not that way. And once they realize that, and they realize there's a bit of a grind, then it sorts the men from the boys, so to speak, the kids from the adults, because that's where it gets real. And they've got to either stop the show pony and be a
Yep.
worker, or go back and do other stuff.
Yeah, and I guess is that a conversation that you have a lot of with young people when they
Yeah,
when they
if
see
they're
what
open to it.
you've accomplished?
Yeah, everyone loves, like you meet me now and you go, oh wow, look at what they're doing. The 80 odd kids with compassion that we sponsor. We've given in I think it was the first 7 years of having the business, we're able to give away over $1 million to not for profits, churches, charities, that sort of stuff, and then sponsoring sporting groups on top of that sort of thing. And you go, oh Ryan, blah blah blah. You go back 10 years ago, so which is a year before we bought into the business. I was trialing a coaching type thing that year we made $22,000.
Yeah.
And we were living with Jenny's parents, and I wasn't helping them with their rent because we didn't have that much income, and the school that our kids were at were helping us because we didn't have enough income to get going. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I felt like this was the moment we're supposed to be exploding. So, it's like everyone has this flash thing. And I think it's like, now we drive the nice car, we do this, we do that. And I have so many young people going, what's it like? You've got your car, and it's like, it's a car. It's just a piece of metal. And I realized very quickly that it's like the motive behind what you're doing is hugely important. And so if people have a skewed starting point, so, like I often reference in the men's stuff that I do, 50% of marriages have been breaking up in Australia since 95. That means we're nearly third or fourth generation into potentially, you've got people that their parents haven't stayed together, their grandparents haven't stayed together, their great-grandparents haven't stayed together. So they've never seen a modeled family. They've never seen how to things. So there's a heap of father hurt, mother hurt, chasing affection, chasing acceptance, chasing meaning, chasing identity, and they'll latch that chase onto, if I can just achieve this, dad or mum will be proud of me. Or if I can achieve this, that'll prove, when dad said I was a useless prick, that'll prove him wrong. And so their motivation, whilst it activates them, it leaves them hollow because they're never going to get that. And so it's like, if that motivation is that one day I'm going to get the Ferrari and that'll mean I've made it. Every person I know that's bought a Ferrari, not one of them, when I've spoken to them, and all my mates that have got them, I've got a few mates that have got them and that sort of stuff, they're not going, this has set my life up. Now I just feel whole. The ones that were chasing it now want the next level because they realized it didn't fill them. And then, but the ones that are just chilled, it's just another car run. Yep, I love it. I love the drivability. I love the history of it. I love the stories behind it. I love the way it does this better than the Porsche, which is arguable. But anyway, each man to their own. It's like all these things that they have in their mind, but it's like the challenge these days is more evident than ever because it's so celebrated to chase the material, to chase being the business owner, the millionaire, the whatever. Whereas if in here isn't well, if your motive is to try and prove someone wrong, like I always say, so if I smash your glasses, great, you've got glasses on today, Phil.
Yeah.
If your glasses are broken, doesn't matter how good your intent is, doesn't matter what your vision and your outcome is always going to be impeded because there's brokenness. No matter how much you want to do well, no matter how much you want to see that clearly, doesn't matter how much you want it, until that's fixed, stuff's going to be skewed. There's going to be blurriness. There's going to be interruption. There's going to be, and I think that's the challenge these days. We're so quick to promote, so quick, TikTok and all these things and YouTube has elevated people to levels of influence way before they've had any chance to actually sort themselves out. They're jumping into relationships way before they've had any time. So it's like, I always come back to when I'm talking to young people, is like, why do you want to do that? And I just try and let them talk. Because the sooner you can identify the why, I can help them actually achieve or fix or do whatever. Because if their why is to get back at or to prove or to get affection, to get acceptance, it's never going to happen. And so I start working on that part in their heart rather than actually going, let me give you 10 steps to making money in that area and how to do this and blah, blah, blah. That's cool. That's easy to do. The hardest part you can do as a man or a woman is to actually identify this is broken. How do I fix it? Because that's the part that hurts. That's the most intimidating part of your walk in this life, is to identify I'm not perfect and people might know it, that I might need help. It's like, we've had a great surge in the last 15 years in Australia finally on, it's not too weak to speak and all these great things to help encourage that. But it's still something that every human being struggles with, I think, is to actually go, I'm vulnerable here. I don't fully understand or know what I'm doing, or I need help in this area.
Yeah.
That's hard. It's better to present and keep people at an arm's length, which is easy with social media. You can look like you're doing really well.
Yeah, and look, as I mean, a vast majority of my audience in education, we see this on a daily basis. We're dealing
hats off to you guys, because it's not easy.
We're dealing with the broken families and the displaced family, the struggling family who can't afford to put food on the table. Any scenario you can think of, every teacher has to deal with it. And part of what I think, one of my drives beyond teaching and when I'm in the classroom is about building that relationship first. Because if I don't have a relationship with a student, then I can't speak positively into them. But on the same thing, if I don't speak positively into their lives, I can't also speak negatively in the way of I can't correct them.
Can't give them money. Yeah.
So with the way your businesses are working, do you see that one of your key successes in business is relational, is building that relationship first?
Yeah, and I was, I suppose, blessed into thinking that was normal. Being raised, my parents are amazing. My brothers are amazing. I was raised in church, so and not raised as in like a religious thing. Raised in church, I was on fire for God from a young age. Like that was my thing. So it's like I just operate in that faction of, people don't care about what you know until they know how much you care. If you sow what you reap. So if I'm treating you as a transaction, then I'm going to be treated as a transaction. Whereas if I treat you as a person and I value you individually as a person, then there's payoffs in that. My old boss that I was talking to you about, some of the greatest lessons he taught me, not he learnt me, that would be wrong. Hence I went to school, good English. He taught me was that every person deserves, not earns, deserves respect and to be treated with honor. So it's like when we go to Speedway and someone's there that's fully unemployed and not in the normal social realm that I would hang in. And Dan at that stage is a millionaire doing heaps of stuff. He's got his own sprint car teams. He's running the World Series all over Australia, doing really well, driving the Bentley, got all that stuff. And he'll sit in the dirt and talk to old mate for an hour and start talking to him about his family and be like, "That's amazing. How did you get?" And genuinely caring for that person. And I was like, as a young man, I was going, hang on, this guy can't help anything you're doing here. But I was missing a point, if that makes sense. This person deserves it because they're human. And that lesson came about, we went through massive downturn in 08, 09 in Australia with the GFC and floods and all this sort of stuff. And my boss at that stage is sending me out to our clients. There's no work. It's like, so it's as a salesperson, it's sort of defunct. There's no work to have. So what are you doing? And he would send me out and just go and just be you. Go and talk to Phil. Ask him how his family's going. He's going to be going through the same stress. At any moment, the bigger company could fire him. He'll be worried about his longevity. He'll be worried about stuff. Go and just be there for them. And so I learned in that realm, okay, when we do that, that actually held us in good stead as a company through, I don't know how many shifts in the mining industry, because we haven't been transactional with our clients, we've been caring. It's the individual then that's deciding whether we stay or go. And if I've actually been good to them and I haven't, it might be a bit, we haven't raped and pillaged during the good times. We've kept it at a decent level. We've not done all that sort of stuff. Even to the point, I've had people that I've fired for very good reasons, like deplorable, they need to be fired. But I've fired them in a way that they're thanking me by the end of it. And then mind-blowingly, I'm getting people ringing me because they put me as a reference. And I'm like, yeah, I can't really, what they did, I can't tell you, but there's a thing. But I sit there and I think that's because that person has never been shown respect. And that could be part of what's led to them doing what they did wrong. They've never been treated with actual, you know what, you're better than this. We have to let you go because this breaks these rules. But we believe that you're better. It's like actually taking that time to invest in the person. Because I'm a strong believer, even in all our coaching stuff we do, 99% of the people that come to work, come to school, don't come to screw the people. They don't come to be a pain in the backside of people. They don't come to upset everything. They don't come to fail their classes. They don't come to stuff up at work. They don't come to have fun. They don't do that. So if that is happening, there's got to be something deeper that's not right in that person. And like you said, when you're dealing with, broken families, fatherless family, whatever, it's amazing. And I've only had a small exposure to it in our charity that we have, where we do a lot of stuff with the strength program, with Hillsong's strength program, and then Real Me, which is a C3 Bridging the Downs one for the girls. I obviously didn't teach the girls one. Girls do that, but we did the guys. But it just blew my mind when we go into different school settings, and if we would ask the question, whose parents are together and, whatever, all of our trouble, 80% of our trouble in any of those classes always came from the kids that had the broken household. It was never, it's rarely would it be the one that's got both mum and dad together and they're still doing well. It's the boy that is just trying to prove something, that's either struggling with rejection, all these issues, and they're so broken that they don't know how to react, so they overreact in their anger. And one of my best stories is a young guy. He was only year 6, I think it was, and we'd been warned because it was at a certain school. And I won't say, the young guy still contacts me now, which is good. That's like nearly 14 years later. But he was like, the day I walked in there, I've never been. I'm not a teacher. I don't have to put up deal with what you guys do. I'm a volunteer. I'm coming in to just help. Day one, he's effing this, effing that, throwing chairs across the thing. I'm like, man, I'm going to have to call the principal. You can and this effort was doing better, and jumps out the window. I'm like, oh, call the principal. Principal comes and gets him. Second week, I explained to everyone again, I'm a volunteer. I don't have to be here. I'm here because I want to sow into you guys, teaching you stuff on life skills. He's still chucking a hissy fit, and I'm like, mate, you need to settle down. We're not going to do blah, blah, blah. He still had to get picked up by the principal. Week 3, because it's an 8-week thing, where I teach them how to shake hands and look people in the eye. Be a man. This is how you shake hands. Like, because most people haven't been taught that sort of stuff. Just simple communication. And they all line up before they're going to shake hands. And he just gets to me and boom. Now, one, you're not allowed to touch kids in school. So in the back of my mind, he's been trouble. And I'm thinking, this guy set me up. I'm going to get him. He's going to do something, whatever. He just stayed there as the 20 kids go out, and then shook my hand and left for the rest of the time. Still had his moments, but never to that explosion, because for the first time, he's having someone, his parents are in jail, dad's in jail for drugs, mum's in jail for drugs, living with the grandparents, all this rejection, all this whatever. And his behavior is he's striving for someone that actually cares for him.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's hard. It's a teacher's paid to be there in his mind. They have to teach me. But it was rare for him, the first person in his world that I gathered when we spoke and over the years afterwards, that was just there for him. For no cost. I'm not getting anything out of this. I'm just here to love on you guys. And that's rare language for a lot of people, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Look, I remember one story from a student on a school I was working at in Sydney. Again, he had probably, slightly different family thing. He had came from a family with tremendous wealth, but mum and dad had gone through a very bitter divorce. So mum took off, didn't want him. Dad he just kept on throwing money at him to try and calm him down. We did what we could within the school environment, and we really tried to help him get through this rough spot. Now he's okay. Now he's, matured a little bit. Thankfully, he didn't get up to too much trouble.
Yeah.
But we asked him once, and it was just like, why do you keep misbehaving? And he's like, and for a 16 or 17-year-old, I think he was 17, he just goes, I keep misbehaving because I know you'll stop me, because you care about me. Mum and dad couldn't give a shit.
Yeah, yeah.
And so for a world view of that for a 17-year-old, where he has every opportunity open to him, but he's just trying to find someone who cares enough about him to go, hey, that's not how we behave in a community.
Yeah, and there's so much in it. Like, because you go, okay, dad may not be equipped to be a father, so he's struggling. And we even in that strength program, we talk to the boys. I go, you got to remember, this is the first time your parents have been parents.
Yeah.
So this is all trial and error for them. And if they didn't have a good example, they're in a weird. If you're a different behavioral style to them, if you're a different personality to them, they're struggling to engage with you. This is all new ground to them. They've never had this. They might have had a brother or a sister before you, but you're different. So this is all new to them. They haven't been parents all their life. They were actually you. And you now at 15, there was like 10 years from now, they became parents. They weren't always parents. They were young, adventurous, never thought about having kids.
Yeah.
It's all woo, and now they're parents. I said, so, giving them that bit of slack and that grace as well as a child to go, oh, they don't know. I actually need to, and it would be beautiful if parents were equipping themselves. And that's another thing I talk into on men's stuff, because we're great as men. If I say to you, Phil, we're gonna go and ride the Japanese Himalayas or Alps and that sort of stuff, you and I would go and train. We'd get the right gear, the right stuff. We'd be like, yeah, we're doing it. And we'd talk to coaches, how are we going to handle the altitude, how are we going to do, and we'd put all this effort in and be great. And then we say, hey, have you had any training on being a parent? I'll piss off. I don't, there's nothing wrong here. Don't we? You're trying to say I'm weak. You're trying to say I'm inept. And I'm like, it's such a a backward mindset that we have as males, that we think that in the most important roles we have in life, in being a husband and a father and even a son, that we won't get training on that because we think that's weakness. But in business, we'll take ourselves and do extra classes. We'll pay to hang out with mentors that are doing well in business and they've done all this stuff. And yet the moment it's like, well, have you paid someone that's 40 years, 50 years married? Their kids are all functioning well and they're married and they're doing well. Have you sat down with them and asked them what they went through? What did they do wrong? What was the hardest part of their marriage? What's the hardest thing they've had?
Yeah.
And we go, oh, that'd be weak. There's nothing wrong with my marriage. Or there's nothing wrong with my kids. And it's like, holy cow. It just blows my mind because it's such a, once it's open to us and we recognize it, we go, oh yeah, that's stupid. Because it'd be like getting called up for the last State of Origin. And they call me and go, Ryan, do you want to play? We need you to play 5'8". My passion and my desire, and I love Queensland. I'd bust my balls. I'm supposed to get out there and do it. And
Absolutely.
all my mates would be going, Ryan.
Anyway, so
I know. But they would have been coaching me and saying, don't do it. All my good mates would be saying, Ryan, you haven't done the training. You haven't been doing the weights. You don't know the plays. You don't know that is stupid for you to do that. Yeah. And yet we have a kid. We do nothing. We don't read. We don't do any research. We watch YouTube videos on someone falling over on a slide rather than looking up how to be a father. We don't look at how to be a mother. We don't look at how to be, it's like, it's just a weird wall that seems to exist in people's minds in every other area that come and go. Sports come and go. Businesses come and go. Money comes and goes. All that stuff comes and goes. Your legacy is how your family and your those closest to you remember you. And we do the least amount of training in that area. It blows my mind. I'm working on changing that though.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. Like this conversation, we've sort of gone down a different route to maybe what I expected, but this is what I love. This is what I love about my podcast. It's just it's finding the story behind the screen. Like there's probably a lot of people who know Ryan, the business owner, or Ryan, the family man, or Ryan this, but then how does it all mash together? And that's part of what I'm doing. But it sounds that obviously passion not only for families and for young people, but also for men in particular. Now, your major business is in the mining industry, so very male dominated. Very
historically, it has been
it's starting to change. Which is fantastic. But do you see? I guess, from your experience, one, working with young people all those years ago and then being in schools, do you see the knock-on effects and the real repercussions of some of those things in these very masculine, often hard men? Do you see, and how does that play out in business?
Yeah, I think there's been a few, there were preconceived ideas. So when you're young, I think you're very idealistic, if that's the right word. It's like everything's black and white. So I still remember good friends of mine getting divorced when we were young and we were only a couple of years into our marriage. And they were like, we still like each other, but we just don't love each other. And we're still friends and we're just going, and I was like, what is that crap? Like, that's such a cop out. Like, and then you start walking through life and you have different journeys and different moments, even in your own marriage and different things where you got to go, I actually got to make a decision here, or I'm going to be where they were in that next year. But you start talking to people and realizing, I haven't yet met one person whose marriage has fallen apart that got married going, you know what? In about 5 or 6 years, I'm just going to screw it up. I'm going to sleep with the chick at site or the guy at site and blow my whole family up because, that's just my plan. No one has that plan. No one stands at the altar looking in the eyes of their partner going, eventually I'm going to screw you over. That's my plan. They don't have that plan. So that in itself says something to me that people put themselves in positions or aren't aware of certain things, and life has a way of being busy and all this sort of stuff happening, and obviously, the mines have gotten better, because it used to be, when I first started 20 odd years ago, we had guys working for us that were doing in Queensland a 6 and 3, which is 6 days on, 3 days off, but they would do 2 days elsewhere. So they might get home for a day every 2 or 3 weeks if they came home. That's not good for a relationship. Now
No.
it's like a 7 and 7, or sometimes it's a 2 and 1 roster, 2 weeks on, 1 week off, whatever. One of our YouTube videos that we did years ago for Down Under Grip Solutions, just as a help thing, was just a 5-minute, hey, these are some tips for when you're working away from home, for the home person and for the person that's at site, and just gave them practical tips on how to deal with the relationships, because men, we have egos.
Yeah, we do.
Potentially, some more than others. And so there's massive shifts that happen when you're working away and you're doing 12 to 14-hour days. You're absolutely buggered. You're tired. You're whatever. You ring home, and whether it's the guy or the girl that's ringing home, the person that's home answers the phone, and it's like, hey, the kids are going mental. Can I call you back in an hour? You're like, yeah, okay, fine. Yep, click. You go and get crib. You do whatever. You're trying to settle into the room, and they don't ring back. The thought that goes through most humans is, tomorrow night I'm not ringing. They said they'd ring back, because we're defensive. We're hurt, so we usually defend first instead of realizing, hey, she actually loves me, or he actually loves me. They're not doing this on purpose. No, someone that loves you doesn't. But our mind goes into this defensive thing out of our own insecurities. Oh, they're trying to piss me off. Oh, they're probably, because I'm away, they're punishing me because I'm away, and I'm here busting my ass for them, and blah blah blah. It's like all these thoughts come up. But the problem is, then they get home, the person doesn't stay for the 7 days. They go and hang out with their mates for 3 or 4 days. They go and do this, because every time they talk, there's a bit of undealt with whatever. And they're going, I've only got to make 2 more days, and then I'm on that plane again, and I don't have to deal with it. Or the kids are at a certain age, and they're loggerheads every time they're at home. And they're like, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what I'm doing. As soon as I hit that 7 days off, I can be back at work. I don't have to worry about this. It'll sort itself out. It doesn't sort itself out. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. So it's like people are just ill-equipped, and we by nature go towards what we know.
Yeah.
And like I was saying earlier, most of us are first-time parents. It's not like this is our 30-year rendition of having kids pop out every year, and we've picked up a heap of stuff and we know how to do it now. It's like, this is the first time we've had teenagers. This is the first time I've worked away for excessive. This is the first time we've lost a loved one, and my wife seems to be all messed up, and I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to fix that. And so instead of engaging more, we go to where we're celebrated, where at work I can finish that task real easy. And everyone goes, good job, Ryan. You did heaps good. I go home and my wife's looking at me like I'm a failure. It's too hard. I don't want to be. I'm going to go out in the shed and fix the mower. I'm going to go work on the yard. I'm going to go fishing. I'm going to go do this, because I don't know how to fix that. And I want to help. And it's like there's this tension that happens.
Yeah.
And if people don't know, if they're not aware of that, they think it's just them.
Yeah.
So there's obviously something wrong. So I need to look for something else. And unfortunately, with everything else, we talk about social media, everything's all about you now. Oh, if it doesn't feel good, you need to get out. I've had one of my best mates. They're still married now, thank God. There was like early time, 3 years, 4 years into their marriage. They're about to have their first baby, and they had a big blue about going to an event that he thought, because it's good friends of theirs, this is a once in a lifetime event that they're doing. We need to stay for the whole reception. And she had already told him, she's like 8 months pregnant. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay to the whole thing. And he's working away and coming back and whatever. So he's chucked a hissy fit, basically. We should be doing it. I think it's rude that we don't stay when we go there on the weekend. This is on the Friday before the Saturday that's going to be on. They've had a big blue. He's literally grabbed his bag, put it in the ute, and he's driving around Mackay. And he rings me. And he's like, hey, I just need to know. I'm going to tell you some stuff. You just tell me if I'm being a dickhead or not. And I'm like, okay. he tells me his story, and I'm like, mate, this is her first baby. Yep. So she's scared crapless. Oh, you're away at least 5 nights a week at the moment because you're trying to get all the extra work you can before the baby's born because you want to have some time off. Yep. So I'm doing it for her. Yeah, that's cool. She's at home scared. This is her first baby. She's tired. She's growing a human in her belly. She's stressed out. She's all this sort of stuff. And you wanted to go to a social event where everyone's going to be hitting the piss, drinking all night. It's going to go till 11 or 12 o'clock at night. She's having struggles staying up past 7 o'clock. She's 8 months pregnant. It's the middle of summer. She's uncomfortable. Her back hurts. Her belly hurts. It's pushing on her bladder. All these things. Her feet swell. All these things are happening. And she's just asking if you can leave at 9. And he's like, Ugh. So my advice would be to go buy a bunch of flowers, say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
And go home. And he goes, yeah, you're right. I knew I should come and talk to you. And he said, I was going to ring some of my mates. And he said, but I already know what they were going to say. And I'm like, what do you reckon? And he goes, they'd be like, she's a selfish bitch. She needs to just be put in a place. You deserve this. That's one of your best mates from long term. She's being selfish. She should let you do that. And I said, oh yeah. And he goes, but I looked at all my mates that were going to be at the pub, and he said, and none of them have functioning relationships. And I said, it blew my mind. It blew my mind because wisdom on his part, but so many people have trouble in their relationship, trouble at their job, trouble at whatever. And instead of going to talk to people that may not tell them what they want to hear, that have succeeded in their marriage, have succeeded with their kids, have succeeded with their business, have succeeded, they go and talk to their unemployed fifth marriage, and this one's on the rocks, can't keep a job, can't keep a thing, and hit the piss with them, and that person makes them feel better for the position they're in because, you shouldn't accept any responsibility for your life. I think that's an encouraging part, is like trying to get people to that stage of going, hey, how do you take responsibility for what you're doing and equip them? And that's what we try and do in the business world. It's like the videos we do and that sort of stuff is like trying to equip them with something they're not hearing every day. Because when they're on site, there's so many, unfortunately, there's a heap of stuff that goes wrong. People play up while they're away. People play up back home while the other person's at work. There's all these continual stories going on. So it's like there's already a mess going on in their head that if you're not careful, you start putting questionable doubts on the person that you love, which is actually doubting their character because of your insecurity. That's not right. That's not love. That's not trust. That's not any of that. And so if they don't have that ability, if they've not been shown how to do that, again, that training, and we talk about it 4 generations into not seeing a functioning relationship, it's like they don't know how to do it. So they defend themselves and push the person away and hope that the person chases them. It's like, it doesn't work that way.
No, it sounds like, I mean, you said you sort of stumbled onto this business, and it's by the sounds of it, both on a business point of view, it's been probably your most successful, probably the hardest probably battles you've had to go through, especially in that industry with downturns and overseas markets playing up and a whole range of things that we read in the newspaper about the mining industry.
Yes.
But from what appeared to be maybe, a bit of an accident as such, it seems that it's sparked that passion for not only you as this is what's inside of me, but it's that it appears that you're a boss that is just going, I want the best for my employees, regardless of what it is. I want them to succeed. I want them to succeed personally. I want them to succeed professionally. So you've done these things. Let's just put a gloss over it. You are successful. But I'm sure without a doubt, and I will get to a question soon, without a doubt, there has been struggles. But
yes,
have you had, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 people in your life, like your friend, who you've allowed to not just be that yes man, to go, hey, Ryan, pull your head in. Ryan, you need to do X, Y, and Z, or you need to stop doing X, Y, and Z. And yeah, so have you got that, and has that
Yeah.
impacted, and has that made you more, the word successful is the wrong word, but has that helped you get to the point in life where you now, obviously, you have an amazing family, amazing businesses, and you are now giving back? Is that having those people to correct you at
Yeah.
critical points?
Yeah. I think it's a great question, because a lot of people don't give space to that in their world. And we see that in uber famous people. We see that walk itself out, where they make stupid decisions and they've got their entourage around them going, yeah, yeah, yeah. My dad has been very good. Him and mum will just talk to me and then be saying to dad, I think something's stressing him. I think whatever. Um, my wife has been awesome, because she knows when I'm stressed, even when I didn't know. To be honest, I'm 46 now, which may date this podcast as it's out there for the next 20 years, winning everything. But it's like that. It would have been probably 3 years ago, or no, probably 5 years ago now, I started to admit, I get tired. Because for whatever reason in my psyche, to say you were tired is just a mindset. Just push through, which is just immature and dumb. But my wife would be like, you're tired. I'm like, I'm not tired. You're stressed. I'm not stressed. It's like I had this fake, and I think the younger generations, we all do it to an extent. And then, like you're saying, having that group around us, I saw modeled good friendship, good accountability, and the strength that brought to my parents' marriage, to the churches and businesses dad was running, to the friendship groups that they were in. Having that core group of people that are there for each other, that actually care, that want the best for each other, and are working together. So coming out of that, one of the things that I always, from a young person, was very purposeful. Well, 2000 would have been. I went to my first conference as a youth pastor, and dad, who'd been a pastor for many years, said, Ryan, don't make my mistake. I'm like, because dad's perfect in my world, like he does really good. He goes, don't make my mistake. He said, I allow the intimidation of the room to not go and talk to people because you go, we're only a small church, or we're only a small youth group, or we're only a small. He said, everyone's a human. Just go and talk to them. And that clicked in my sales world. That clicked. I've stood in a room of 400 plus contractors at a BHP. The CEO of BHP's in the room in a massive big open foyer. They have a 15-minute breakout where you can just go and talk to everyone. He is the only person in the whole room wearing a white business shirt. Everyone else is in orange reflective or chambray blue was the in thing at the time. And I went, because not one person was going to talk to him. So I go up to Mr. John Smith, which was his name, funnily enough. And I'm like, hey, Ryan Gilbank. 15 minutes talking to him, personal email, chatted for years after that, getting insight, getting encouragement, asking him leadership questions, all that sort of stuff. All because I made the effort of actually, what we talked about at the start, treating him like a human. And then it's like, I got core mates that I've said at different times. Like we lived in Wollongong, Mackay, we're in Brisbane now, and that sort of stuff. In each of those areas, still, I've got core friends that when I'm there, we catch up. But in every one of those areas, I've had core guys that I go, I'm giving you permission, Phil. If you see me talking to a chick and you're like, that doesn't seem right, feel free to come and interrupt.
Yeah.
I've had times where I'm like, if you see me talking to that person, I have no reason to talk to that person. Come and interrupt me because I'm stroking my ego. It's like, so I've created those safe bounds around me. And then in business, my old boss, he was a hard boss. He's much softer now, but I know if I tell him certain stuff about the business, he's going to tell me. It may not be what I want to hear. And at times I've had to put on, when we bought our first investment building and that sort of stuff, I asked him after the fact, and he's talking to me. He's going, these are the reasons I probably wouldn't buy that. I'd look at this and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm just quiet on the phone. And he goes, You already bought it, haven't you? I'm like, yeah, maybe. But he goes, you know what? This is the maturity of him over the years. He goes, you know what? It's a great purchase. It's still less in repayments than what you're paying now for leasing. It gives you your own facility. It's not as big as I would have went. He said, but I'm always crazy, jump off the ledge, build the plane later. He said, this is a great step. So he was still encouraging, but I've learned from that, I don't need to be scared. I need to talk to him. So I've got all these people in my realm, whether it's family realm, church realm, business realm, that I've given permission to speak into my world. First and foremost is obviously my wife, because we're in the team. So if she sees me struggling, I've had to learn to drop my ego, my bravado, I'm pushing through, and go, all right, I need to dial it back. If she sees how I'm speaking to my sons and she's saying that's not landing, okay. Despite what I think, I'm going to go away and think about that and maybe adjust how I approach them in that. Yeah, because that's what we should be doing. I think, like we go back to the start, if this is broken, like we talk about with our 26 plus years of marriage, we do a list at 24 of what do we think's made this work? Like, in a world where the average, whatever marriage I don't think it lasts past 10 years or something. I can't remember what the average is now. It's like how we got to 24 and now 26. And at the top of both of our lists was fix your crap. Because most of my problems with her are actually based out of my insecurity, out of my brokenness, my past experience, my issues, my whatever. Most of my issues with my clients are based out of my insecurities, and it's like, it's amazing how once you start working on fixing your insecurity, why am I scared of this? Why do I react in that when she says this? Why do I react when a client pushes that button? Why do I, it's like, hang on, something's not right here. And it's like, as soon as we started to fix that, man, the amount of issues that dissipate in business and like you said, trying to be better for your workers. One of our best workers in the early days that worked for me after I bought the business, they can all have those key impacts on your world. And we were talking about, I didn't really like Down Under because it's like, it just digs holes. We just help them dig holes. My passion's to help people. This just digs holes. And she just said a simple statement. She's like, what if you could do both? And I'm like, so why wouldn't you use the resources that you're getting from digging holes to help people? And it had just never correlated that I'm thinking of how can I build a business over here that will help me help people?
Yeah.
When if I just focus on this, it'll make me enough money to help the people. It's like, it's like like a young guy I'm mentoring at the moment. I talk to, he's a great guy, young guy, he's 30s. Been offered a full-time role at a church. He's in a great job at the moment, though, that makes him over 100 plus K a year. He's got 2 kids, married, all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, this is easy. No, they're going to pay you half of that. Your first call and your first responsibility is to your wife and kids. So unless you get a lightning bolt in your heart that is saying, I'm going to look after you, give it up, then no, maybe you need to resource that ministry because you're making good money now. But your first responsibility is to do the best for your wife and kids, to leave them an inheritance, to leave them for generations to come, not to, it's like this. So it's that game of having, I'm that to him, that voice, if that makes sense. It's like, I'm full on for church. I'm all about the church. The church is the hope of the world. It is. And the church is you and I. So if your marriage is not healthy, then the church isn't running and functioning well. If your kids are disenfranchised and left out because you're giving everything over here instead of to there, maybe you're giving over there because that's the place that you are still feeling an insecurity. It's like all these, there's reasons.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, your wife sounds like a very wise woman. And
she just did her master's in psychology. I think they gave her the opportunity to do her master's because they met me and they're like, holy cow, if she's lived with him for that right there. Yeah, that's right.
But going back to that statement of like, why can't you do both? I was listening to a podcast, and we all know, Rob Dyrdek from the Dream Factory and Ridiculousness.
Yep.
And I heard him say, and he's like, this guy, like, you look at him, you think, well, you're just a joker. but he's very savvy, very smart businessman, but he factors his time to the percentage. Like he works out how
Yeah.
much
Wow.
percentage am I giving up to this. But he was
Yeah.
talking about ridiculousness, and he was like getting tired of it. And he's like, I don't want to, the sort of the things I can't remember exactly, but it was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm tired of it. But then he, had some, I think he had someone or whatever it was, but he worked it out. He spent 4% of his year doing ridiculousness, but
Wow.
what that allowed him to do, the money that generated for him, allowed him to start another business, invest into others, do a lot of the philanthropy stuff that he does, all by going, hold on, 4% allows me to do however much it was. And it sounds
Yeah.
like, your main business is that thing. It's like, if I do this really well, then I can do this even better, because
Yeah.
this gives me the resources for that. And like on that, you've talked about you sponsor sporting clubs, and you've given quite large donations to not for profits and all that sort of stuff. Do you see in the way society is currently, especially with cost of living and all these things that are happening, housing crisis, etc., all the negative clickbait that we see everywhere, which is really biting. We
Yeah.
see it, and because of that clickbait, we sort of we disassociate from it, but it's all too
Yeah.
real. But do you see business leaders like yourself? Do you think there's more that some of these guys could be doing? I looked at, as an example, like Coles as a conglomerate,
Yeah.
just at a $1.1 billion profit. And people are struggling to put a bowl of rice on the table. So
Yeah.
with what you do, do you think there's enough of that charity happening, or is it happening and no one's seeing it?
Yeah. I mean, it's always a hard one to stand on the outside, I've learnt, and tell other people what they should be doing with their money. I think it's rare. Like if you go to an Anthony Robbins, all his stuff is biblical principle based. You need to be giving 10% to something. For whatever reason, it just works. You give
Yep.
it away, it comes back to you. It's like, yeah, it's biblical. It's a principle that God put into the earth. You seed, you reap. There's like, it's you sow, you reap. That's how it works. In that regard, like I think we could be wiser with what we do.
Okay.
I think there's some challenges, and Flip, I'm not a politician and I'm far from an economist. I think there's certain things that we do where we're giving international businesses a free pass in Australia and sending literally hundreds of billions of dollars worth of money offshore that we could be taxing, that other countries tax at that level, and those same companies are in those countries operating happily, but we don't tax them. And there's one business, and I don't know the full thing, but it's literally I have it. I can get you it later. I'll send you the stuff on it. But it's like they're an international group, and they take resources out of our ground in Australia. And the same, so gas resources that we send overseas, we overtook another country, Qatar, that exports the same gas. We overtook them 2 years ago, and in that year, we took in $2.2 billion worth of tax. Qatar took in over $72 billion worth of tax. And I go, hang on,
something's not
why
right
are
there.
we taxing average Phil and average Ryan more and trying to keep him in a box and keep him controlled so he's dependent on the government, when we could be taxing that person? That puts a lot into our budget.
Yeah.
There's other groups that operated their whole operating net profit for the year. They have an overseas business that invoiced them for a like consulting fee, and took that whole thing, so they didn't make any profit for the year. So the government gave them millions of dollars of incentive to stay in Australia. Well, they paid no tax. that sort of stuff bugs me when then they'll come after me, or they doing there like where we go, the new work utes like the Hiluxes and all these basic things they're adding another tax to, and I go, I don't understand why you want to beat up the little guys in that regard, or people that are already struggling with inflation and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Well, I was talking to a colleague at work, and one of his friends owns a carpentry business, framing, housing and stuff like that. And it took him 2 years to find an apprentice because all the other kids could actually make more working part-time at McDonald's or Kmart or wherever than doing that. And I think that's a reflection on that short-term mindset. They're going, okay,
Yeah,
like we were talking earlier, like that immediacy is like, I want this now. They work at McDonald's. They make their, whatever it is for a teenager to make it a week, that they get everything they need. Instead of going, hold on, if I do the hard work in 4, 5, 6 years time, I've finished my apprenticeship, I'm working, I've got my, builder's license or whatever, license they have. And then they're going, oh, hold on. Whereas old mate who stayed doing that job that paid well at 17, 18,
they pay well now.
Apart. So,
yeah,
it must be tough. And you must see that.
And I don't think there's no quick answer to it, because everyone's an individual. Everyone's got a different story, a different background that's led them to wherever they are, whether they're working or not working and that sort of stuff. I just think some of the challenges we have in our whole setting is that it's such short-term thinking.
Yep.
Like you were saying, it's even in our government sector, you're there, your first year in as Prime Minister is just to get the ropes. Your second year, you might try and get something through the Senate and get some stuff approved. And then the third year, you start getting prepped for the next election. And it's like it's like everything. It's like some of the big groups that we deal with in companies, international companies. Phil comes in, he's a new whatever project manager. And Phil wants to make a name for himself, and he wants to get his bonus. So he changes a heap of stuff, does a heap of stuff and whatever. But those companies like to move those people on a maximum around about that 3-year mark.
Yep.
So you've come in, it takes you 6 months to come in. Then you start to want to implement ideas. They do all the research. So you're already a year in. Then you start to try and implement it. Everyone's so used to the bosses changing. So they're resistant. They're slow to move. You put all these things in place. You're trying to shift the whole system. You're turning this massive boat. And then in the third year, it's like everyone's going, okay, yeah, cool. Let's put you in this project. Let's put you over here. And then move you into another role. And new project manager comes in, who doesn't like anything Phil did. Phil's, that was great. It's good for him. But this is what I know is going to work. And there's no long-term 10-year approach, 15-year approach that goes, okay, we're building new roads. Well, let's actually build them to last. No, we're building so that there's jobs for people. So we don't build them to the quality that we should from the start. We build them to a level that means in 5 years' time they're going to need maintenance, which keeps people working, which is cool. It keeps, that's the job of government, is to keep people whatever. But it's like, we could do better. And build for, it's that sort of mindset, long-term mindset. Yeah. It's like, so it's hard. And I'm always, I don't want to get political. I think if you've never run a business and never run anything of significance, I don't understand how you can be trying to be in politics and run a city, a state, or a nation, because you have no idea. Like, you've never actually taken a risk. You've never thinking you're going to get a great fat cat reward, but if it all goes to crap, you still get your massive pension, you still get your massive thing. There's no risk on your part, so there's no need to make a great decision. Now, I'm not saying they don't have a good heart, but they don't have the experience. So I'm always wary of anyone that doesn't have their own portfolio. It's like going to the financial advisor that rocks up in a busted 1984 Corolla, and he's about to tell you how to make money for your retirement and your thing. I'm like, no. Financial advisor that rocks up in his Bentley, yeah, I'm listening to him. Yeah, it's like that. It's that thought pattern. I don't understand why we vote for people that don't have any runs on the board. I can't understand that. But anyway, that's another.
Like being in a primary industry, you must see, you must come up against a lot more than most. And especially, myself, just the people that I guess even just the people you're talking to, the businesses you're dealing with, like they are multinational corporations, so you hear the ins and outs. So
yeah, and it's not the individuals. This is the part that's amazing. It's never the actual individuals. I've never met, I personally, even politicians that I don't. I go, "Bleh." I've met them. They're passionate. They love what like they're passionate. And in businesses, all our multinational businesses, they're good people having a go with what they got. They don't have enough leash though or lead to implement long-term change, because everything's so pressured now with if you're on a share market or whatever, you need to make money now. Anything that makes the share price drop, that's not good. So it's like the pressure to perform every day instead of going, you know what, this is going to cost us for the next 2 years, but that'll set us up for the next 10 years. It's not encouraged to think that way. It's make what you can now for the 6 months so you get your bonus and the business gets their bonus, and then we'll worry about the next 6 months then, and then we'll worry about that. And it's like they keep digging into this hole, and it's sad to watch because you see good people burning out. Anyway, that's another whole story.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it sounds like I'm going to have you on again, because I reckon we could probably talk for another hour at least.
Yes,
but
I'll try not to be controversial.
Hey, no, look, part of this is getting, like, finding different points of view, finding where, as teachers, we're training these young men and women to go into the. I hate I'm not going to use real world, because I hate that term, because if I'm not in the real world now, what the hell am I doing? But we're training these young men and women to become active citizens and responsible citizens in the world. So it's great to hear from people like yourself who are out there in a completely different realm to us, to hear what drives you, what motivates you, what you see on a daily basis, so that we even can just have that conversation with the student. Hey, this is what could happen one day. If you're thinking about this industry, it's fantastic, but here's some pitfalls, or here's some things you need to think about. So that's why, having people such as yourself who are well experienced, well versed in business, in family, also dealing with young people from other experiences. You have a passion for the young people, and that's why you do some of the charitable stuff, which is, which I'll have to put into the show notes if you're still involved, that's for sure. But look, I want to be respectful of your time. You do have a family, you do have businesses, and like you said, you get tired, as do I, and I'm just I'm a couple of years your senior. So
does it get better?
It's a whole different challenge. I'm enjoying it. I just became a grandparent, so I'm loving it.
Oh wow! Yeah, we need to talk about that next time, because that's interesting.
Oh, it's fantastic, and we'll definitely talk about that, maybe offline, and we'll have a good yarn and catch up. But look, like I said,
I'll say to your teachers in that regard, like I think it's an amazing role, because I don't understand how you do it. Like you're trying to lay an education into a room of people that have all different backgrounds, all different learning abilities, all different learning types, and trying to do it. And so it's like, my head is like, commend you guys. I was not an easy student. So it's like, I love my teachers. I have a lot of respect for them. I wish I was more mature when I was at school, but it's like, it's an amazing work. And I know no teacher, same thing. Most teachers don't go in there for the paycheck. They're going in there because they actually want to instill something into young people. And that's hard, but it's commendable. So, yeah.
Well, on behalf of all our listeners and myself personally, thank you for that. Yeah, it is great. Yeah, teachers don't often get a great deal of public praise. It's great to hear it from others, and there's some things that happen on a daily basis, and every teacher will have a little story. Like I had the other day, a student walked past me. Now she's got some things going on in her life, but she walked past me, and I had to keep walking, so I didn't tear up. But she's like, "Sir, I just want to say thank you, because your class makes me feel good." And it's just like, if that's the one safe spot she's got in a day, like, fantastic. Who
Yes.
cares?
Yeah.
Who cares what she learns? She feels safe and she feels good, and
Yeah.
that's what she needs. So yeah, that's why I guess that's why we do what we do, and hopefully we're developing some amazing young people to go and work in industries like you, and to become people like yourself. Because without teachers, investing into students, we can't have those. We don't have that value placed on us like that young man who you're still in touch with. That's
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, that you could be that one voice
yeah.
that they hear in their day that's actually positive, that's encouraging, that they don't hear that at home. Don't get me started on that one. It's like, yeah, the value of just being there, because you guys are under pressure. You guys have got your own family, you got your own stresses at home, you got your own challenges and what have you, because no teacher's perfect. But then to still front up and it's almost like it really is. It's a ministry. It's a service to love on these kids is not easy, especially when the outside can be crusty and sharp. It's okay, well, yeah. My brother-in-law, I know he gets attracted to that kid because he's like, what? Everyone, he just blasts everyone. He needs help, and I'm like, yeah, wow, that's huge because that's not easy.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's what's the story behind the kid? There's always a reason.
Yeah.
There's always a reason, and very very rarely, I would say, less to be a fraction of a percent that there is a kid out there who's just horrible. Most of them have got a story for why they're behaving.
Yeah, that's right.
Like most adults, there's always a story behind it. So
yeah.
Hey, but just before we wrap up, we've covered some pretty in-depth things, and I thank you for sharing and being so open with not only yourself personally, but also some of the stuff that you deal with. So, but just to wrap up with just a couple of little quick questions, just to finish up, and they're very light-hearted, pretty light-hearted. So the first one is, what's your favorite drink?
Oh, gee whiz. For school age kids or for adult kids?
Anyway, my favorite one's a beer. I love a beer. So,
whenever I'm out, if I'm getting a cocktail, I'll get an old fashioned, and it's got to have the right cherry in it and a nice freshly shaved orange peel. For some reason, I just love that. It's nice, refreshing.
Beautiful. Well, I'll have to order one next time I'm out with you.
Yes, yeah.
Now, look, we've talked about a lot of challenges, but what's one challenge that you'd put out there to our listeners? Could be a big one, could be a small one, could be just something that they could just accomplish each day, but just a challenge for them.
Yeah, I think if we go with the theme of tonight, because it seemed to be something, whether I kept bringing it back to it or not, it's would be to seek out and become aware of the areas that you're broken, but not to focus on them like that's my weakness and that's my terrible part, but to find those parts and then start to build into repairing that. So it's like whatever that area is, that part that whenever someone touches it, it hurts and your hackles go up, your defenses, everything like that. But to actually dig into that and be vulnerable in that, finding someone that you can trust and talk to and go, hey, I've noticed this about me. Why do you think because sometimes we can't see it, it's like everyone else can see it. They know, he's coming in, Phil's looking a bit mental today. Well, let's steer clear. And we're like, what's going on with everyone? And we don't realize it. My wife, she points out certain areas, like she knows when I'm under stress sometimes before I am, because certain facial expressions that I do that I'm unaware of. So she can, because I'm not insecure in that anymore, she can go, hey, babe, you look a bit stressed. This is happening. Like, what's going on? And instead of me just washing it off like, no, I'm fine, we're just, I go, and I'll actually think about it and address the stress. But that's taken a process. And so I encourage people, it's like the leaps forward in my world that I wish I had done when I was 20 would be to know my weaknesses and to start bolstering them.
Yeah.
So to repair them so they're not a weakness. It's like if my fear of rejection is huge, how do I fix that? If my fear of losing control is huge, my fear of being taken advantage of, or being criticized, or losing security, if they're fears that are heightened, starting to identify them and going, is this realistic, or is it something that's blocking me because of a past experience? And if I work through that, because some of them are huge, some people have some very valid fears, or they were valid when the situation happened, but now they're carrying it and they're 20, 30 years in, or they're a teenager and it was something that happened when they were 5. Like kids that are scared of dogs because when they were little, a little noodle that's this big yapped at them and nipped their finger, and now they're scared of every dog. That's not realistic. It's an unrealistic fear. But if you don't ever face that and start to rationale, it'll stop you from doing stuff in your life. That's a waste. Like, it's no reason, Anyway, yeah, that's my thought pattern. Is like, take the time out. That's a deep one.
Yeah. So look inward before you go outward. Yeah, it's a tough one, but I think a very good one that we need to look at. I know there's things that I've overcome in my life by, rather than blaming the outside forces, I've looked in and how I can deal with it and move on. So, and like we talked about, having someone go, hey, hold on, have a look in before you.
Which we don't like all the time.
And it's just, shut up, get out of here.
That's right.
Hey, next one. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, whatever that you either live by, that you hold fast, or that's helped you throughout your life, but whether whatever aspect?
Yeah, it was one. I mean, it's out of the scriptures where it says, do unto others as they do unto you. But deeper than that, because I think it's been misconstrued a lot of the times, because we always go, well, I'm going to do to feel how I would like to be treated.
Yep.
And there's a gap, and we don't have time to go into this. This can be next one. But you got knowledge, understanding, and then wisdom. And so it's like, I face this in my world. This is my background. This is how I dealt with it, and it worked for me. Phil comes to me and goes, oh, I've got this problem. I go, and I jump straight to, this is how you do it. And it has no impact on you because I haven't come to the understanding of where you're at. And then the doing unto others how I would like them done unto me is actually, it's deeper. It's me. I've learned in relationships and in everything, with business, work, wife, whatever. If I'm feeling disenfranchised in the relationship, most of the time I go, they should be. This is what they should be doing for me. They're not, they should, I feel, how come they're not holding their part, blah, blah, blah. And that's destructive. It's never worked. I've never seen any relationship that I've felt like that in work or get better. However, the moment I go, I'm feeling disenfranchised, I feel like they should, I go, okay, if I'm feeling that, then probably they're feeling that. So what am I not giving my wife that she needs right now? What am I not giving my client that they need right now? What am I not doing in this relationship? And that's been the big shifter, because the moment I start to feed into them what they want, what they need in the relationship, what they expect, the communication style that they need, the love that they need, the feedback that they need, the whatever, then it comes back to me. But the more I focus on what I should be getting, and they should be just giving me what I'm giving them, what I would like, well, that may not be what they, So that's been a huge one. Not easy, because by default we go back to how we want to work, how we want to talk, how we want to do stuff. But the moment you can start focusing on, okay, in this relationship, if I'm feeling disenfranchised, they probably are too. What do they need from me that I'm not doing right now?
Yeah.
And as soon as I start doing that, for some reason, they start to fill my cup. It's the old, I'm pouring into them, but they start pouring into me. It's amazing.
That's brilliant. Now, it wouldn't be the Tattoo Teacher podcast if I didn't ask, do you have any tattoos?
I do. I suppose relatively new. My wife got one a few years ago, a little anchor for the Hebrews, the Lord's anchor. And she was up me to get her initials for years. And I was like, I had this thing, like, I see your tattoos and we saw them in real life. I was like, I need to have it for like two or 3 weeks, the design. And then if I still want it, on my body for the rest of my life, then I'll do it. In November last year, I was in San Diego, had been away for a bit, and I'm like, I'm going to do it. Mate of mine knows some ridiculously awarded tattooists, and I'm like, is he available? Yep, I'll call him. Blah, he's available. Sweet. I'm going to get an anchor for Jenny and her name in running writing, not block letters, because everyone does. Oh, sorry, in block letters, not running writing, because everyone does running writing. I don't want it to be the same. Anyway, got that one, and wifey saw it, and she was like, oh. So I thought I'd done this great gesture, and she's like, how come you didn't do running writing? I'm like, everyone does it. She goes, there's a reason that everyone does it. It looks good. I'm like, okay. So that was on me for a bit. And then last in April or March this year, I was over in San Diego again. So I got the same guy, and I got 3 lion heads, which I don't know. We're shirting people. We de-shirt a little. I can't see my fat belly, so we'll do it that way. But it's like, we did the 3 across there, and still heard Jenny with the anchor. I don't know if that makes it better for you, but that's all I've got so far.
Also far.
I was going to do them in full color, and now that we've got the lions, to my relief, Jenny seems to think that it's nicer without the color. But that was like 6 hours in one sitting, and that was enough for me. And we had to work back that way to the center. So the last hour was all along the.
That just hurts.
Yeah. The rest I enjoyed, but this one I was done.
I've got a nice big one right in the center of my chest, and it looks good, but man, it hurt. So
yeah. If he'd started there, I might have been better off. But
absolutely. And last but certainly not least, if people want to connect with you, or find out more about what you do, where's the best place to look? And I can put this in the show notes.
Probably. There's a couple of ones where we're in the process of launching Mindset by Ryan, which will have all that side of like this sort of thing on it, and just different resources and what have you as it grows. At the moment, it's very infant stage, but that's on Facebook and what have you. Otherwise, just follow me on Facebook, Ryan Gilbank, or on Instagram, Ryan the Legend. Yes, the handle was there, so I took it.
Why not? All right. Well, I'll throw that. I'll throw those in the show notes, and I'll throw your LinkedIn profile in if.
That'd be good.
The business side of things as well. Hey, but mate, I want to thank you so much for your time tonight. We went a bit longer, but what a great conversation.
It's always easier when it's a good conversation.
Oh, absolutely, mate. I do. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you.
Yes.
Keep on keeping on, and look, I'd love to catch up with you again, and maybe talk about a few other things. I had like a ton of questions that I wanted to ask you, but I love how the conversation we just followed the conversation where it needed to go. So, mate, I appreciate it. You have a wonderful evening.
You also, and much love to all the teachers that you're encouraging, because they need it.
Oh, cheers, mate. Appreciate it. Hey, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you so much for listening to the Tattoo Teacher podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it insightful. If you like what you heard, it would mean so much to me if you could either like, follow, and subscribe to whatever platform you are listening on. The music was by DJ Fruit Salad. Thanks again for listening. Stay cool. Be blessed.